I'm Megan, and I'm one of the newest bees at Arty Bees, and I'm here today with Matt Morris, legendary bookseller and my colleague at Arty Bees. And I just thought that we might have a conversation about working in a secondhand bookshop and Matt's career in books, and just find out a little bit more about secondhand antiquarian books. Welcome, Matt.
Hello.
Tell me, I mean, you are a legendary sort of front of house bookseller at Arty Bees and part of the Wellington scene. How did you get involved in books?
Well, I lived in Wellington for a long time and finished teachers training college and then taught for a year and decided I didn't particularly like children, so I should find another job. I was walking down Cuba Street where the shop was, and I'd been in there very often, and popped in and said, "Do you have any jobs?" The answer, as is usually the case and has been as long as I've been here, is not really. But there was someone who was working there over the holidays who was going back to university. So they said, in a month or so, there'll be a job. So I turned up in a month or so and started working there. And that was in 1993.
My goodness, it's like most of us who end up in bookshops, it's usually accidental.
Yeah.
And what drew you to the secondhand bookshop rather than new books?
Oh, it was just a place I'd liked being in. So I thought, well, if I like being here, why don't I be here and get paid for it?
Albeit in books, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's not exactly the most high-paying job in the world. We don't have Ferraris or anything, but it's a nice job.
And how many years does that make it now that you've been there?
28 and a half.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So tell me a little bit about Arty Bees. When did Arty Bees start up? Do you know?
It started up 5 years before I started there in 1988.
Gosh.
Bob had bought it as a retirement hobby because he had so many books in his house that he decided he should have a bookshop. And it moved from one side of the road to the other for earthquake re-strengthening. He bought another bookshop in Cambridge Terrace at the beginning of an empire kind of thing. That shop moved around a bit. We moved around a bit. When I first started, we were where Olive Cafe is now. We then moved a bit further down the road after about 5 years. And then in late 2002, we moved into the Oaks building where we are now. The other shop moved around Courtney Place a bit, and we joined both shops together in 2009.
It's a massive, massive shop. Like, I mean, it's almost it's quite different from what I imagine sometimes when I think about, like, the dust, filled, wood-lined antiquarian bookshops. Like, I mean, it's quite a different feel to that. And I have to say that you are almost the antithesis of what you imagine to be behind the front desk of a secondhand bookshop. You're far from the crotchety, sort of Sean Blithell, kind of Shakespeare and Company bookshop character. What makes Arty Bees so unique?
Well, when Bob started it, he wanted it to be a friendly bookshop. So that's always kind of come through. And certainly myself and lots of other people who've worked there have liked to have things in order, which makes a big difference. For a long time, there was no computer records of what we had. You just needed to know where all the books were. And it's much easier to find a book if they're in alphabetic order or category order, or it doesn't really matter what kind of order as long as you know what the order is.
As long as you know what the order is.
Yes, as long as, that's for people coming in, it's often a challenge. Our regional history, for instance, is arranged geographically, north on the top shelf and south on the bottom shelf, which makes perfect sense, but it's not what you think of first.
Yeah, right. And there's such an amazing range of New Zealand titles in that store, isn't there? It's quite special.
For a long time, we just kept on buying any New Zealand titles we could get our hands on. when we combined both shops in 2009, we had a storeroom upstairs that was just full of so much New Zealand literature.
Mm.
And then for about 3 years, we had a New Zealand literature sale where all of it was $1 each.
Oh no.
There were a couple of authors who came in and were not pleased to see their
Oh,
entire oeuvre that someone could purchase for less than $10.
yeah.
Um,
Has it been more about the idea of the longevity of your time there? Like, I mean, you had a background as a teacher, which I always think makes a great bookseller, by the way. But is it just the immersion, the osmosis kind of, element of being in a bookshop that has made you such an expert, or like given you this incredible knowledge? Or did you already have knowledge in these things?
no, I think it's just the more you do something, the better you get at it.
True.
And working in a bookshop, you need to know a lot about books. Either you teach yourself or you just, it will get you in the end. The knowledge will come and force itself on you. But there a little bit of practice and a little bit of work helps. And just reading everything helps.
I think I've always thought that curiosity is the main, is just so necessary in a bookseller. And you definitely fit that category. Your curiosity is boundless, I think.
Yes, well, I mean, I live out of town and have a long commute and have done for quite a while now. And that means I can just take a book home off the shelf to read on the train. And if it grips me, it grips me. And I read it to the end. But quite often it's in my bag the next day when I come into work and I go, well, I've read half of that. I kind of know what it's about. Do I want to finish it today? No. But, as is visible behind me, you can see that there are some books that I have decided are worth keeping.
Yeah, just a few.
Yeah, well, one of the things I always loved was the Terry Pratchett books, and I've got a huge collection of them. They're the ones just up there. It's 2 shelves, 2 layers deep, lots of first editions, and lots. Working in the book trade meant I managed to get some of the promotional stuff too. So I've got stamps and that kind of thing, and
yeah. I always think it's interesting too that, I think, what is it about, books that are written in 1721 or 1921 or even in 2020? Like, why is it still important to have those books around us? Like, why would you read something that was written, a long time ago? Or, why are books so important that are old?
they're kind of like a photograph of a time. They kind of show you what people were thinking and how they were thinking. One of the ones I like is a book called Houseboat on the River Styx by John Kendrick Bangs, which is a peculiar name. And that was written in about 1905, maybe. Editions I've got are about 1912. And they're just weird, really, really peculiar. The writing style is not vastly different from, say, Sherlock Holmes. So, you don't need, it's not like Shakespeare that you need to struggle through it all. But it's just so peculiar, the story.
It's really interesting how we sort of can sometimes, like recently we had that lovely copy of 1984 that came to the store, that's the first edition. It's sort of at the same time, it's a book that has the same words in a $14 Penguin edition that you can buy now, but there is something very special about the cloth on boards, the idea that this was the first time it was printed, that it was the first time an audience came to it. But why do you think the buying public are so enamored with old books?
Oh, I think it's just about having something that is just so wonderful and there is so much history in it. It's like picking up a rock from a glacier or something and knowing you're the first person to ever touched it. Having a book of that's more than just what it is. It's more than the words. It's the and some things you pick up by accident that suddenly have a strangely deeper meaning. Somewhere on one of the shelves in this room, there's a first edition copy of Name of the Rose,
Yeah.
which is not at all uncommon. They printed thousands of them. It had done very well originally, and once it was translated, they pretty much banked on it doing well. So there's heaps of them out there. It's not at all valuable. But the copy that I've got has a library stamp in it from St. Gerard's Monastery, which is in Wellington. It was for a while, but it just, Name of the Rose, which is a book about books in a monastery. The copy I've got came from a monastery library, which in itself is just quite hilarious.
Yeah, that's a very special thing about secondhand books, isn't it? Like those little notations, those things that come from other people.
Yes, yes. And some people notate more than others. I mean, most people don't notate in their books at all. And for other people, it is often quite infuriating, but sometimes really good.
Yeah.
I've been reading some J.D. Robb books, and because they're secondhand, that have come through the shop, and I just take them home to read every now and again on the train. One person that we purchased them from obviously was something of a frustrated copy editor, and in bright red pen, they've corrected all the missing commas and apostrophes, which is quite distracting when you're reading a book of that quality and literary merit, which is not great. So you're just reading it for the sheer escapism of it. The bright red little ticks and crosses out is quite annoying. We had one a couple of years ago that was a book on a mountaineering, an autobiography of a New Zealand mountaineer who'd done a lot of climbing in the Himalayas in the mid to late 50s. And that had the two chapters on that period of his life had a huge amount of notations. And reading them, it became obvious that the notations were from someone else who'd been on the same expeditions, who was disagreeing with his corrections. A lot of things, circles around statements saying, check this. And at one point where the statement said we had come from Kathmandu was underlined and very heavily with we were going to Kathmandu. And something else about someone's hat going missing had the words, it was my hat.
Oh dear, that's where John Klassen got his idea for his hat series.
Yes.
Oh dear. I mean, Robert Birch, who started Arty Bees, he talks about in his memoir about the idea that books just walk in the door.
Yeah.
Our customers are our supplier. Our customers, we buy directly from our customers. Can you tell us about a favorite purchase or a really memorable buying experience?
Oh, I've got a feeling that the ones that stick in your mind are the ones that were more unpleasant than others. There's so many positive ones, they all kind of blend into one. People who bring books in and, are just clearing out their house and then suddenly go, oh, and I can swap them for other books. Oh, great. And yeah, just keep on cycling them through. They just keep on coming back, bringing books in that they're finished with. Particularly now with people living in smaller apartments, they often don't have enough space for all their books. We've had a few of people leaving things in books that we've then contacted them later, and they've been extremely grateful that we noticed that they had photos that they'd used as bookmarks. But even on that score, the unpleasant one is the chap who used cotton buds as bookmarks. Most of them were clean, but some of them had been used to clean his ears before using them as a bookmark.
Oh dear.
I mean, spiders and general dustiness is a bit of an issue. But yeah, there are lots of people who regularly bring in books that they have been just collecting up. I mean, there's a few people I think who still go to garage sales and collect books that they think we'll want and then bring them in to sell us. When I started, there were a few more of them. And there was at least one chap who I think virtually made his entire living going around garage sales on a Saturday morning with a checklist of all the things he could buy to sell on to other people.
Mm.
But I think
Well, it's
trade
one of the
needs
beautiful parts of our business, isn't it? That sustainability, that kind of circling of books.
Yeah, I mean, everything, almost everything we sell is already on its second life. So
yeah. Are there any sort of books that you've just put your hands on in a buy that you've just gone, oh my goodness me? it's the, you know, the wondrous, wonderful things that you've seen. Too many?
Probably too many. I can't actually think of too many that really leap out.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a bit later on when you go to put the price in it and you notice that the author's signed it or something.
Yeah. That's what
makes it. Yeah.
So I always think about, you know, the customers. I mean, of course, we just talked about them being our suppliers and about the, you know, the people who sort of we keep in business by buying books from them, keeping up their book habit as well. But I mean, there's a sort of an idea around the type of people who frequent secondhand bookshops. I mean, are they different from other customers in other stores, do you think?
Most of them aren't. Most of them are just normal people. There are a few people who feel particularly comfortable in a secondhand bookshop and let their true personality show. And yeah, sometimes that gets a bit interesting. But we had one of the cast from Lord of the Rings, when that was being filmed, would come in each evening, because at that point we were open quite late most evenings, and just worked through all the antique books we had, taking virtually everyone off the shelf, looking at it and deciding whether or not to buy it. In the end, he purchased about 3 or 4 cartons worth.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing too. I mean, we talk about booksellers being curious, but our, you know, customers are, you know, just have these, they just bring a wealth of something quite unique with them into the store, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah. There's nothing like a bookshop customer. They really are the best and worst. And are you a great, obviously, I mean, you know, it's a silly question to ask if you're a great reader yourself, but are you a great collector?
Yes, although I try not to be.
Yeah, right.
It can get, it can get completely out of hand. I mean, the Terry Pratchett collection, a lot of that's first editions, but that's just because I bought them on the day they were released. There's a few other interesting bits and pieces that I've come across either coming through the shop or just as I've been traveling around, because just being visited by a cat.
Love it. Well, there you go. Matt has a cat.
Yes, I've got 2 cats actually. One's asleep and the other one is somewhat demanding of attention at the moment.
Right, we're really getting to know you today. Matt, you talked earlier about books. You know, we get books in and they have things in them, like some unwanted things sometimes. I mean, more seriously, I mean, a secondhand bookshop during, you know, times of a pandemic, it can seem problematic to some customers, to some people, that, you know, these have been pre-handled, pre-loved in people's homes. It can be a little bit sort of off-putting.
Yeah.
I mean, you dealt with this last year when we went into lockdown the first time and when we had the first sort of, you know, forays into this area. It's, I mean, already, I mean, watching, just being at the bookshop, we do so much to clean up books already. Like you know, we sort of, we scrape away things, we take off stickers and plastic, we clean books up on a daily basis. And somebody who's kind of a little bit wary of secondhand books.
Well, the other thing is most of that, well, in this particular pandemic, it doesn't seem to survive longer than a couple of weeks. And in some cases, books will take a couple of weeks to get out on the shelf. And they will be cleaned and they're on the way. I mean, yes, we do see a lot of books that, I mean, just the stickiness and the dustiness just all gets cleaned off. One of the staff who worked here many years ago was quite particular about making sure every book was cleaned, including the little $3 Mills and Boons ones that all needed to have furniture polish sprayed on them and then wiped off. I think we'd comfortably be able to say we take every reasonable precaution. There's nothing inherently wrong with something that's been in someone else's house for a while. You do notice on books that have been in a room where someone smoked a lot that they can. We've had one or two extreme examples of that, where each book we actually had to do a little bit of research on what kind of cleaning products are the best for getting that kind of mark off books. Yeah, but they're just, it's nothing to worry about too much, really.
Okay. As long as, because yeah, I mean, we're taking precautions, we're cleaning, we're doing all the things that people are supposed to be doing, but
yeah. Oh yeah.
And can I ask you, what is your lockdown reading?
I'm rereading a big stack of Elizabeth Moon books, and I'm going through those at about one a day.
Oh wow.
Oh, I've read them before. They're just a really relaxing, nice read. So I think I'm up to the fifth one. Well, no, the second one in there's a trilogy and then a double book prequel and then a 5-book follow-up. So there's 10 books altogether. I'm not bothering with the prequel ones this time. So I've read 5 and I've got 3 more to go, which will probably take me through till Monday. So I might have a go at the Scandinavian detective ones, the ones from the 60s.
Oh, the policeman, those types of ones.
Yes. Martin Beck.
Martin Beck, yeah.
Yes, I'd rather try and pronounce the name of the character than the name of the author.
Yes. We'll let people comment on that when they're able to come back and see us again. Well, thank you for joining me today, Matt, and talking a little bit about secondhand books and Arty Bees. It's such a special place to be part of, and your enthusiasm and anecdotal sort of knowledge of books and people and authors is just such a joy on a daily basis. And your smiling face when people walk in the door, I'm sure, is always, is something that people are missing and looking forward to seeing again. So thank you for joining me today and having a small chat about books, and hopefully we can do it again soon sometime.
Okay.
In person.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Stay home, everyone. Stay safe.